Hello, and welcome to the Science for Sleep. Tonight we softly step into a question without an answer. If you're enjoying this quiet journey through curiosity and time, consider subscribing. There's always more to explore. Gently. We'd love to know your location and time zone in the comments. Now imagine a door. Not just any door, but a smooth, pale one, hovering upright in a dark field with no hinges, no knob, and no frame. It stands alone, under a sky without stars. When you reach out and touch it, the surface feels cool, like mist on glass. You push it open, and instead of a room, there's a long corridor, softly lit, curving slightly to the left, as if winding in a slow spiral. There are no clocks here, only a sense that something familiar is missing. You step forward. The floor is quiet beneath your feet. Behind you, the door closes without a sound. The air carries the faint scent of paper, as though thoughts themselves have settled into dust. Along the walls, strange symbols fade in and out like candlelight. Some look like numbers, others like the gentle sweep of constellations. Here in this place, time has no schedule. It isn't pressing on your chest or waiting on your wrist. It isn't reminding you of what must be done. It simply loosens. Have you ever watched a drop of water fall in slow motion? The way it stretches into a clear oval, then separates from the surface in a gentle release, floating for a moment longer than seems natural. That pause, that impossible moment between what was and what will be, is where we begin. You see, we often think of time as a line, a straight, inevitable progression, morning to noon, childhood to old age. But what if that's only a shadow, a shape time wears for our benefit? What if time is more like a room we haven't fully explored, or a wind we can feel but never capture? Let your thoughts sink a little deeper. We live inside time, but we rarely notice its walls. It hides behind familiar things, a fading candle, a warm plate cooling slowly, a word taking shape in your mind. But sometimes time steps forward and makes itself known. Perhaps you felt it during a thunderstorm, when seconds stretched between lightning and sound. Or in a waiting room, where minutes seem to loop endlessly, refusing to pass. Or even in childhood, when summer felt impossibly long, and each day was large enough to hold a lifetime. There is no ticking in this corridor, no labels, no before or after, just a quiet presence, like the hum of a refrigerator or the weight of fog on a window. So let's not rush. Let's drift through this question as if it were a dream, always on the edge of understanding, always just out of reach, through you. There's a pause now, a soft silence, like when snow falls on an empty road. And in this pause we find ourselves wondering, how did we first notice time at all? It wasn't on a watch or a screen. There were no ticking hands, no glowing numbers, no announcements, no alarms. Time, back then, was something the world whispered. Imagine you're standing on the edge of a clearing. The air is thick with dusk. Somewhere nearby a fire crackles, and just beyond it the early humans sit, quiet, watching the sky. No words, only the slow turn of the earth above them. One star appears, then another. They notice how the stars return to the same places, how the moon swells and fades, how the cold returns when certain constellations rise. These aren't measurements, not yet. These are patterns, feelings in the bones, rhythms in the blood. You walk closer to the fire. A child points upwards. There's wonder in the gesture, but also familiarity, as if even at that early age they already understand something you've forgotten, that time begins not with minutes, but with memory. The days grow long, then short, then long again. The animals come and go, the berries bloom and vanish. Time is felt through hunger, warmth, migration. It's marked not by tools, but by survival. And then someone, perhaps a mother with sharp eyes, notices the shadow cast by a tree trunk changes as the sun moves. She uses a stick to draw its path in the dirt. A circle, a slow arc. Maybe she doesn't know it yet, but she's tracing the first crude clock. Not to keep appointments, there are no appointments, but to understand. Later, you might see others counting with stones, marking how many nights since a storm or how many full moons since a child is born. Each stone is a heartbeat, a whisper of what was. And so, without speaking it aloud, we invented time through noticing, through memory, through the repetition of the world around us. There were no borders on these moments, no definitions, just an awareness of change, the sound of a stream shifting after rainfall, the way shadows bend across the skin at sunset, the slowness of growing old. Time was not measured, it was witnessed. Now imagine your eyes closing slowly, the fire has dimmed, the stars above shift and the cold sets in around your shoulders. You feel a presence, not a person, not an animal, something older, a rhythm. You can't see it, but you know it's there. It's time itself, not ticking, not rushing, just being, just watching. This is the world before calendars, before hours, a time when we knew things by how they felt. A warm season, a dark season, a season of hunger, a season of plenty. There is something comforting in this simplicity, no pressure, no deadlines, just existence, wrapped in rhythm. And yet this is where the seed was planted, that slow, patient realization that moments return, that change is not chaos but order, and that if we could follow the rhythms closely enough, we might begin to predict, to prepare, to plan. That was the beginning, that was the tick that changed everything. Look up. The corridor bends slightly now, and above your head the ceiling vanishes into an open dome of night. But this isn't any ordinary sky, it moves slowly, deliberately. Stars trailing across it like glowing threads pulled by invisible hands. This is the sky as ancient astronomers knew it. Not just a decoration above, but a machine. A vast, silent wheel, turning above the earth, full of meaning and promise. Imagine standing on the high stone of an early temple, barefoot against the cool surface. The air is crisp and the sky is impossibly clear. You can see it, how the stars move together, how constellations rise at the same spot night after night, how the moon dances across the same paths over and over again. To the people who stood here long before you, this was not coincidence. It was the universe speaking. The sky was a script, and time was written in its pages. The sun always returned. The moon always changed. The stars followed invisible rails. And so, time was no longer just noticed, it was studied. They carved lines into stone. They built towers that cast shadows only at noon. They placed markers where the sun would rise on the longest day of the year. They memorized the paths of Venus, Mars, and Saturn, believing that knowing their patterns was knowing the future. And maybe, in a way, it was. Because if you knew when the river would flood, if you knew when the snows would come, if you knew when to plant, when to harvest, when to wait, then time was not just a mystery. It was a tool. The sky was a clock, a slow, perfect clock, too large to hold, too deep to understand, but precise in ways no human invention would match for millennia. Now close your eyes. Picture a priest astronomer waking before dawn in ancient Babylon. He climbs to the top of a ziggurat, scanning the horizon for the first blink of morning light. He carries no watch, only knowledge. He knows when that star will rise. He knows what it means. Or drift to the jungle temples of the Maya, where stone windows frame the solstices perfectly, not by accident, but by design. There, time was sacred. Time was cyclical. It didn't march forward, it circled like the heavens above. To them and to many others, the sky wasn't just watching, it was keeping score. Every eclipse, every conjunction, every new moon was a tick of something greater. And so we built monuments, not to gods alone, but to time itself. Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids, Chichen Itza. These weren't just marvels of stone and sweat. They were calendars you could walk inside, machines of alignment, built not with wires or gears, but with sunrise and shadow. Here in this corridor, we pass through one of them. The walls around you shift into tall slabs of weathered limestone. Light filters in through a narrow slit overhead, landing precisely on a spiral etched into the floor. The beam is pale gold, and as it moves, it draws your attention not to its speed, but to its inevitability. The light will always return, always reach this spiral, always mark the moment. You are standing in a room designed to remind you that time is not random, and yet, despite the precision, it still feels like magic, that something so vast could move with such care, that we could find our place inside it. You linger here for a while, You watch the light drift across the stone. You don't need to speak. The room says everything. Because here in the sky's slow machinery we learn something lasting. That time doesn't just pass. It dances. And it invites us to follow. The corridor narrows, and the stone beneath your feet changes. It is no longer smooth, now it feels like packed earth and fine sand, worn by hands and years. The light here is softer still, coming from low lanterns hung on bronze hooks, flickering just enough to suggest movement but not urgency. You find yourself in a place between shadow and sun, where time began to drip, one grain at a time. A market hums in the distance. You can almost hear the footsteps of sandals, the sound of cloth brushing against stone and water trickling from a fountain carved with lions' heads. You are in Alexandria, or perhaps Damascus, or Beijing. It hardly matters, this moment exists in all of them. Here people have begun to do something revolutionary. They are measuring time, not by stars, not by seasons, but by instruments, by objects, by tools that attempt to catch the uncatchable. You watch an old man crouch beside a basin. He fills a copper bowl with water and punctures a small hole at the base. Slowly, with the inevitability of thought, the water drains drop by drop, moment by moment. A clepsydra, a water clock. Its passage is not loud, it doesn't tick, it breathes, and yet, in this gentle act of draining, time becomes visible. Not just felt, seen, controlled. Elsewhere, a merchant lifts a polished disc, placing it into the sunlight. A stick casts a long shadow across its face, shifting with the hours. He adjusts a lever to match the season. This is a sundial, a frozen sun on stone, and the sun above tells it what to say. Later, someone in a tall tower tips a cone filled with sand. You watch the grains fall, shimmering in the glow of firelight. A miniature desert in motion. The hourglass is born, and for the first time, time is portable. You can hold it, turn it, reverse it, and in doing so, you begin to believe you command it. But something else is happening here too, something quieter. People begin to shape their lives around these tools. Bells ring to signal markets opening. Monks mark prayers by how much sand has passed. Judges limit. People are not just watching time, they are obeying it. And with this obedience, something is lost, and something gained. A child who once played until the stars came out, now hears a bell and knows it's time to go home. A mother begins to measure her baby's feeding not by instinct but by intervals. A blacksmith plans not by the sun's warmth, but by the call of the midday gong. It is not wrong, it is change, a shift from rhythm to rule, from nature to number. Still, there is beauty in these early machines. They are not cold, they are crafted with care, etched, polished, gilded. Timekeeping was once an art. In your hands now you hold a replica of an ancient sand glass. The grains fall silently, spiralling like tiny stars in descent. As they settle, you realize, no matter how carefully we measure it, time itself remains unchanged. It does not care for our containers. It will slip past water, through glass, around stone. And yet, our desire to grasp it, to mark it, understand it, shape our lives around it, speaks to something deep and old within us. A need not just to live, but to remember that we have lived, that the moment passed, that we were here. The corridor widens again, but this time it pulses with a different energy. You feel it in the air, more structured, more deliberate, not rushed but rhythmic. Ahead you begin to hear something faint and regular. Tick, tock, tick, tock. A sound so familiar, so deeply woven into modern life, that we often forget it was once unheard of. We enter a workshop. Dust hangs in sunbeams. Cogs turn silently under glass domes, and at the centre of the room, a great wheel turns with the steadiness of a heartbeat. The mechanical clock. It was not born suddenly. It grew from centuries of trial, of water, of weight, of wind. But when it arrived, it changed everything. Because now, for the first time, time moved by itself. You no longer needed the sky, or the sun, or the gentle trickle of a bowl. You needed gears, springs, balance and friction. You needed a machine that could keep going, through night, through cloud, through storm, independent and persistent. And what's more, others could hear it, feel it, be ruled by it. Tick, tock. Each second became a sound, each minute a motion. You stand in a stone church tower centuries ago, surrounded by thick ropes and echoing bells. Below, a town listens for the chimes that signal prayer, work, rest. It is not the clergy that directs the people anymore, it is the mechanism behind the wall. Time has begun to govern. Tick, tock. Inside homes, clocks begin to appear, first for the wealthy, then slowly for others. On mantles, in kitchens, around necks. Time shrinks from the stars to the shelf, from the sky to the wrist. A revolution without banners, quiet, precise. And as clocks grow more accurate, 12 sharp. This segmentation allows for invention, for meetings, for global trade, for trains. Yes, trains. Imagine for a moment standing on a platform in the 1800s. Before synchronized time, cities each kept their own clocks. Noon in one town could be 12:14 in the next. But the train must run. It cannot obey each town's sun. So railway time is born. Then standard time, time zones, global clocks ticking in perfect harmony, not with nature but with each other. Tick, tock. With each innovation, time becomes more trusted and more feared. The clock begins to watch us, not the other way around. You arrive late. You rush. You're behind schedule. You make time. You run out of time. You lose time. The words change. The feeling changes. Yet in this moment, standing here among the gears, there is still beauty. A pendulum swings in slow arcs. Springs wind, wheels spin against jeweled pivots. It is craftsmanship, elegance, a song written in metal and motion, and inside it, a kind of poetry. Because this is the moment when time became not just something you live within, but something you live by. Not the pulse of your body, but the pulse of the clock. Tick, tock. The corridor now is lined with delicate threads of light, stretching from wall to wall, each one vibrating gently. You step between them, careful not to disturb their hum. Each thread represents a unit, a division, a line drawn through something once whole. This is where time is divided. We stand at the edge of a moment in history when humans did more than measure time. They carved it, sliced it into equal parts. Hours, minutes, seconds. And in doing so, we changed not just how we marked time, but how we experienced it. It begins with the hour, an arbitrary word, but with power, dividing day and night into 12 parts each, not because nature demands it, but because our minds desire symmetry. 12 felt manageable, familiar. It echoed months, signs, seasons. A circle, complete. Then minutes. A strange word meaning smallest, though not quite the smallest. 60 of them to make an hour. A choice not rooted in human feeling but in mathematics. The base 60 system of ancient Sumerians. A system that allowed easy division. Halves, thirds, fourths, sixths, and finally seconds. The second minute. The second smallest. And from there, the divisions continued. Milliseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds, until time became a thin dust, barely visible, still falling. Stand still. Can you feel 1 second pass? We think we can. A breath in, a blink, a finger tap. But the second is not natural. It does not intersection. All around you, machines are obeying this silent code. Traffic lights change by the second, elevators rise by the second, phones switch from tower to tower by the second, but look closer. Notice the people. Their steps don't follow perfect intervals, their conversations stretch and compress, Their laughter isn't timed, their thoughts even more so, because inside us, the minute and the second are not native. They are learned, taught, inherited. Children don't understand a 5-minute warning. They understand soon, later, when it's dark, after dinner. These are softer concepts, flexible, human. The further we divide time, the more precisely we measure it, the more distant it becomes from our natural rhythms, and yet we keep dividing. You stand now before a massive clock face, floating in the corridor like a moon. Its hands spin silently, ticking past not just seconds, but hundredths. A screen beside it displays an atomic readout, down to trillionths of a second, and still we wonder, what have we really captured? Time does not arrive in slices, it arrives whole, continuous, a river, not a staircase. But we can't drink a river all at once, so we cup it, divide it, shape it into something we can hold. It's not wrong, it's just the cost of precision. The threads of light shift again, becoming tighter, thinner, almost invisible. You reach out, and they hum with certainty, reminders of our quest to master something that resists mastery. And as you walk forward, the threads behind you vanish, unneeded now. The corridor reshapes, the next question awaits, but this one lingers behind. Are we dividing time to understand it, or to control it? The corridor opens into a quiet chamber, circular and dim, where every surface glows faintly with pulse-like flashes. On a pedestal in the center, something small and cold hums with perfect regularity, the soft, almost inaudible vibration of a cesium atom. This is the place where we ask, what is a second, truly? It feels so obvious. A second is a second. We use them constantly, in conversation, in calculation, in quiet thoughts about how long something takes. But the truth is, a second is stranger than we know. It is no longer defined by the sun, not by shadows, or even by gears. It is defined by atoms. You approach the cesium clock on the pedestal. It doesn't look like much, a cylinder, some wires, a chamber within a chamber. But this is the most accurate timekeeper we have. Inside it, atoms of cesium-133 are bombarded with microwaves. They resonate at a frequency, a vibration, exactly 9,192,000,000 per second. That number isn't poetic. It isn't rounded. It's specific, universal, absolute. That vibration is the second. It is no longer about how the world turns. It's about how matter dances. And these vibrations don't drift. They don't vary with the weather or wear down like gears. They tick in a realm beyond experience. A realm where time isn't lived, it's counted. This atomic definition of time has reshaped our world. Satellites in orbit use atomic clocks to tell you where you are on Earth. Without them, GPS would drift. You'd be told you're in the ocean when you're standing in your kitchen. Every bank transaction, every phone call, every bit of data on the internet, they all rely on timing, accurate to fractions of a second. And in the labs, we've gone further. Physicists now speak of optical lattice clocks, timepieces so precise they wouldn't lose a second over the entire age of the universe. But what does that precision mean to you? Can your body feel 9 billion ticks of an atom? Can your mind register even a million, even one? You sit now in this quiet room, surrounded by light that pulses like breath. One light flashes once per second, another twice, another blinks so rapidly it becomes a blur. It's overwhelming, and yet soothing. Because time, as the scientists define it, is no longer personal. It is mechanical, physical, exact. But that doesn't make your experience of it wrong. After all, no one lives by atomic vibration. We live by the time between thoughts, the pause between breaths, the stretch of longing, the quickness of joy. Still, it's worth asking, how did we choose this number? Why 9,192,631,770? The answer is quiet, but telling. It worked. It repeated. It could be counted. Nature was giving us a rhythm, and we followed. We built our timekeeping, not on what is most felt, but on what is most reliable. It's a kind of beauty, cold but clean. And even now, sitting here, you can feel both truths coexisting, the warmth of a remembered moment and the cold hum of perfect time. You step forward, and the corridor turns inward, curling into a space that feels familiar, not mechanical, not celestial, but warm. This is a room not built by stone or metal, but by biology, by breath, by pulse. You are inside the body. Soft light pulses from the floor with each imagined heartbeat, casting a rhythm through the air. Steady, patient, alive. Because long before we built clocks, we were clocks. Listen, your lungs rise and fall, your heart beats and rests, your stomach turns with hunger, your skin senses the sun. These aren't random, they're not vague, they are time. Even as you lie in stillness, your body is ticking. At the center of it all is your circadian rhythm, a silent 24-hour loop orchestrating wakefulness, sleep, temperature, hormone release, alertness. Not tuned by gears or wires, but by light. There's a cluster of about 20,000 neurons in your brain, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Small, hidden behind your eyes. And every morning, when light reaches your retina, this cluster resets, realigns. It tells your body, now is morning, begin again. It's ancient, more ancient than time zones, older than calendars. It evolved in darkness and daylight, not in minutes and schedules. He's in complete isolation. Deep caves, no sunlight, no clocks. The body continues its rhythm. Maybe not exactly 24 hours, but close enough to whisper. Time is not just around you. It is within you. You feel it in the sleepiness that comes before nightfall, in the second wind you catch at dusk, in the way your muscles know when to rise, in the way sadness creeps into evenings, joy into late mornings, memory into twilight. And there are more clocks. Your liver has its own rhythm, so does your gut, your skin, your immune system. These are not subordinate to the brain. They are clocks in their own right, all synchronized, all trying to stay in harmony. But they can be disrupted. Shift work, jet lag, artificial light at midnight. These things throw off the balance, not just of sleep, but of health. Metabolism, mood, blood pressure, even your ability to heal. We are not designed to live against time. We are built to flow with it. Even your heart, now gently beating in this imagined room, keeps time. Not with atomic precision, but with felt rhythm. A resting pulse, a racing beat, a skipped moment, a gentle slowing. And when you're in love, afraid, moved or calm, time doesn't feel like the clocks say it should, because your body is its own timekeeper. It doesn't ask the clock if it's ready, it listens, inward. Now breathe. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale gently. You've just marked time, not with numbers but with sensation, the most ancient kind. And here, in this curved and glowing space, you realize something essential. Even if every clock stopped, your body would still know. It would still turn inward at night, still quicken at danger, still remember the warmth of a long afternoon. Because you don't just live in time, you are time. A rhythm made of breath, of blood, of sleep and song. The corridor dips now, folding softly like a hillside descending into a fog-laced valley. The light dims further. The hum of ticking vanishes. In its place, stillness. This is the land of sleep. A hush settles over everything. You feel weightless, as if gravity itself has lessened. Time feels slower here. Or maybe it's not moving at all, because this is where dreams live. And in dreams, time becomes a question with no answer. You lie down on a surface that forms perfectly beneath you, like memory taking shape. You close your eyes, and immediately the world changes. You're walking through a city of mirrors. Then you're underwater, breathing easily. A childhood pet runs past. You're older, younger. The sky turns violet. The laws of physics vanish. Then you wake, and realize it was all inside a few minutes. Or hours? What is time in dreams? In waking life, time behaves. It marches forward, measurable, consistent. But in dreams, it slips its leash. Minutes stretch or compress, seen waking brain does. When you sleep, your brainwaves change. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that tracks logic and time, softens, quietens. Other regions take over, ones concerned with emotion, memory, imagery. You drift into REM sleep and your brain becomes an artist, painting scenes that defy chronology. Events don't unfold, they appear. Consequences vanish, beginnings and endings blur, and time, in the dream, feels suspended. Scientists have studied this. In some sleep experiments, participants were trained to signal with eye movements during REM sleep. They were asked to count 10 seconds, then signal again. The results? Most counted almost accurately, as if part of the brain still felt the seconds passing. And yet, in those same dreams, entire landscapes appeared, entire stories played out. So which is real, the measured second, or the felt experience? You rise now in this dream valley, and notice others dreaming nearby. Their faces are peaceful, their fingers twitch, their eyes move rapidly beneath their lids, whole lives unfolding behind closed lids. Some are reliving memories, some are wandering fantasies, some are rehearsing fears, or hopes, or moments that haven't happened yet. Dreams don't obey clocks, they follow meaning. You may dream of an entire childhood birthday in 10 seconds, or of floating through space for what feels like days, then wake to find you've only been asleep for 15 minutes. So what is time here? It is yours, not measured by clocks but by experience. And perhaps that's what time really is, at its most personal, the shape of a moment in the mind. When you recall a memory, say walking home in the rain, you don't relive it in real time, you feel it all at once. The sound, the cold, the feeling of being watched, that whole event compressed into a sensation. A dream is much the same. And in this way, dreams teach us something clocks can't. That time, as you experience it, is not linear. It is fluid, emotional, subjective. You don't remember your life as a straight line. You remember it in flashes, echoes, clusters. And that may be the truest time of all. Now rest. Let yourself drift. No past, no future, only now, stretching endlessly into stillness. The corridor stills completely now. The air is cool and unmoving, as if holding its breath. You step carefully, sensing that what comes next isn't just subtle, it's profound. This is where we meet the arrow of time. It is invisible but absolute, a single direction, a one-way current. It flows from birth to death, from cause to effect, from beginning to end. You've always known it, not because someone told you, but because you've never seen otherwise. You've watched ice melt, but never refreeze itself unprovoked. You've dropped a glass and seen it shatter, but never reform. You've aged slowly, every day. Physics, no deep equation that insists time must move forward. The basic rules of the universe are time symmetric. In theory, they work just as well backward as they do forward. And yet, we never see time reverse. Why? The answer may lie in entropy. You stand now in a vast, quiet library, every book in perfect order. This is low entropy, high structure, predictable. Then a breeze blows through, books fall, pages scatter. It's a mess now, high entropy, disordered, chaotic. That's how the universe behaves, from order to disorder, from simplicity to complexity. This, scientists say, is the true arrow of time, not the ticking of clocks, but the increase of entropy, the natural drift from states of low probability to high, from the unlikely to the inevitable. You feel it every day, not just in the crumbling of things, but in your body. Cells degrade, memory fades, the tea cools, the candle burns. Time's arrow isn't cruel, it's simply the path of probability. But what if you could stand still? What if you could pause it all? Entropy, motion, decay. Imagine a room where nothing moves. No air, no sound, no chemical reactions, no thoughts, nothing to change. Would time still pass? Or is time only real when things change? The question lingers. Now shift your thoughts to a photograph, a picture from childhood. You smiling, a frozen instant, no arrow, no before, no after, just that moment. You can stare at it forever, but it won't move, it won't evolve. It's outside time, a still point, and yet when you look at it, you feel time press against it, the weight of everything that came next. everything that changed. This too is the arrow, the space between memory and now. And still, the mind wonders, could it go the other way? Could the arrow turn back? Some theories imagine it. In the far future, when entropy reaches its maximum, when everything has spread out evenly and nothing more can change, perhaps time itself will reverse. Perhaps it already has in places we cannot see. But for now, we live here, in a world where eggs break, not unbreak, where children grow older, not younger, where the past is fixed and the future remains open. And there's comfort in that too, because the arrow gives us meaning. It lets us hope, regret, change. It gives us the difference between then and now, between what was and what could be. You continue down the corridor. Behind you, the air resumes its slow stir. Ahead, another question waits. But behind you, always behind, time continues to flow, forward, only forward. You step onward, and the corridor begins to tilt, not sharply, but subtly. The floor leans beneath you as if the very geometry of space is folding around the next idea. You feel lighter and then heavier. The lights overhead stretch, and how could time, the most constant thing you know, bend? But it can, and it does. Einstein showed us that time is not rigid, not absolute. It flows differently depending on where you are and how fast you're moving. The faster you go, the slower time passes for you, relative to someone standing still. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth, the other boards a ship and travels near the speed of light, looping around the galaxy. When the travelling twin returns, only a few years have passed for them, but decades have passed for the one who stayed. This is not fantasy. This is verified. It's not a trick of clocks. It's a real difference in lived time. And it's not just speed that warps time. So does gravity. You now stand at the edge of something vast, a sphere of darkness, silent and dense. A black hole. Here, gravity is so intense that even light cannot escape, and time slows. Imagine lowering a clock toward the event horizon. To you, watching from afar, the seconds stretch. The hands move slower and slower, until they seem to freeze entirely. But to the clock, nothing has changed. This is gravitational time dilation. Time is not the same everywhere. It depends on your position, your velocity, your surroundings. You walk now through a field of floating clocks, some small, some large, some spinning rapidly. Each ticks at its own pace. You pass between them, watching the seconds disagree. And here's the strange part. None of them are wrong. Time is not universal. It's personal. Each object, each observer, has its own time, tied to its motion, its path through space. We call this space-time, a fabric that stretches, warps, curves around mass and energy. You are not simply moving through time. You are dragging time with you. When satellites orbit Earth, they must adjust their clocks, because time ticks slightly faster up there than it does on the ground. Without those corrections, GPS would become wildly inaccurate within hours. So every day, the modern world compensates for the stretch of time. You might not feel it, but it is happening, constantly. Now imagine yourself falling, not in danger but gently, toward a massive planet. The deeper you go into its gravitational well, the more time slows for you. Decades might pass above, while you drift for only moments below. Time, bent by gravity, is no longer a straight line. It curves, it pulls, it flows differently depending on where you stand. And so, the question becomes, is there one true time? Or only a chorus of ticking hearts, each singing its own rhythm? You float now in the corridor, weightless, watching clocks fade into stars, each one marking a truth, not the truth, because time, we now understand, does not happen to us. We carry it, bend it, shape it, and sometimes we don't even notice. The corridor deepens now, narrowing into a cool and hushed descent. You feel the walls pull in gently, like the narrowing of a cave. The air is still, deeper, deep still. You hear no ticks, no hums, no voices, only the slow sound of your own breath. This is a place where time has stopped noticing itself, a timeless place. Far below ground, far from cities, from signal, from sun, a space untouched by schedule or cycle. A cave. You are walking through it now. The walls are smooth, ancient, glistening slightly with moisture that hasn't seen daylight in thousands of years. Ahead you see paintings, ochre and black, handprints, deer, spirals. Someone once made these by firelight. Someone who had no clock, but still had time. And yet this space has no markers, no mornings, no evenings, no reminders. It is a space outside rhythm. In these places, caves, deserts, deep oceans, forgotten tundras, time begins to lose its grip on the mind. Studies have shown that when people spend extended time underground, in darkness and silence, their internal sense of time begins to drift. Sleep cycles elongate or contract. Days stretch, minutes collapse. One person might think a week has passed when only 3 days have. Another believes only 2 days have passed when it has been 10. Because in the absence of change, time becomes unmeasurable. You sit now on a rock ledge deep within this imagined cave. It is warm, safe. The air is thick with silence. You do not know what hour it is, or even if it is day. Your breath slows. Your thoughts unspool. Without clocks, without schedules, without even the sun, you begin to feel what time really is. Not seconds, not hours, not even entropy, just change. You look at the limestone formations around you, stalactites and stalagmites, dripping, growing. Each delicate spike took centuries to form, a single drop at a time. They are, quite literally, time made solid. You reach out gently and touch one. It's cold, ancient, older than every calendar, and still growing imperceptibly. There are creatures that live in caves like this, pale, sightless fish. Their lives unfold without any sense of day or night. No sunrise to wake them, no dusk to rest. They are born, they move, they reproduce, they die, all without the world above. They live in time, but not by it. Elsewhere on Earth, in deserts that have not changed in millennia, you can lie beneath stars and feel the planet as it used to be. Not frozen, but eternal. Nothing rushes, nothing arrives early or late. It simply is. And in the deepest parts of the ocean, where sunlight has never touched, animals drift like calendars. You lie down, the cave breathes around you. Somewhere a drop of water falls. That sound is the only clock here. Slow, steady, eternal. And for now it is enough. You are in a place that does not know the date, a place where time has no edge, and here in this silence, it finally lets go of you. The corridor expands again, but this time, not outward, inward. It folds in upon itself, curving like a spiral staircase made of fog. The walls around you ripple and bend, as if space is second-guessing itself. You've entered the realm where time doesn't just flow, it loops, knots, and questions causality itself. This is the realm of paradox, the home of time travel, not the flashy kind from stories, not blue police boxes or flux capacitors, but thought experiments, serious, whispered puzzles considered by the world's most careful minds. You walk now into a room with no walls. Instead, it is lined with windows. Each one looks into a moment that has already happened, or perhaps is about to. Some feel familiar, some feel impossible. This is the thought. What if you could go back? Back to yesterday, to a choice, to a moment, to a whisper before it became an echo. The very idea of travelling through time opens the door to strangeness. You sit before a small table. On it a note. Don't open the box. There is, of course, a box. Did you write the note? Did someone else? What happens if you open it? This is the bootstrap paradox, a loop with no beginning. Imagine you travel back in time with a book, say, a novel. You give it to your younger self. They grow up, publish the book. Years later, the older you travels back again with the same book. So who wrote it? It exists, but without origin. The loop closes in on itself. You move on. Next, the grandfather paradox. If you went back in time and prevented your own grandfather from meeting your grandmother, would you cease to exist? But if you cease to exist, who went back in time to stop it? This isn't just wordplay. It challenges the very foundation of cause and effect. Most physicists believe these paradoxes mean time travel to the past is impossible, or, if it is possible, something must protect the timeline. Perhaps events rearrange themselves to prevent contradictions. This is called the Novikov self-consistency principle. In other words, you can go back, but you cannot change what must already be true. You watch now as a glowing thread loops around your wrist, then travels backward through the air, only to reappear again at your side. The loop is seamless, no break, no beginning. Is this time? Could the future already exist waiting, just as the past does? Einstein thought so. He described time as another dimension, not so different from space. You can walk forward, or backward, or sideways. If space is a landscape, time is simply the path you walk through it.
Exists. We don't move through time like passengers on a train. We are the train, and the track was laid long before we noticed. But some thinkers propose even stranger things. They suggest that time does loop, that the universe may repeat itself. Not just galaxies and stars, but you, everything you are, over and over again. A cosmic déjà vu that spans infinity. You look into another window. You see yourself, older, smiling. Then another, younger, running, laughing. Then another, completely still. Are they different versions of you? Or just echoes stretched along a curved track? We don't know. And perhaps we're not meant to. Because time loops, paradoxes, and causal mazes aren't just puzzles, they're reminders that reality isn't always linear, that stories and lives don't always begin and end in the way we expect. You close your eyes. You imagine not going forward, not going backward, but simply being. Still, present, within a moment that folds in on itself endlessly. The corridor becomes narrow now, almost thread-like, a tunnel of glinting particles suspended in stillness. Everything feels smaller here, denser. You're shrinking with each step, not in size exactly, but in scale. Soon, you're no longer walking through hallways. You're moving through atoms. You've entered the quantum realm, where time becomes a whisper and sometimes disappears. Here, things don't behave the way they're supposed to. Particles flicker in and out of existence. Some occupy two states at once. Others refuse to reveal themselves unless watched. And time does not behave. You float beside an electron humming softly in its orbit, except it's not in one orbit. It exists in a cloud of possibilities, a wave of potential. Until you look, then it chooses. That choice, that act of observation, collapses the wave. Not just in space, but in time. Here's the unsettling thought. Time at the quantum level doesn't flow. It jumps. It blinks. Sometimes it doesn't move at all. Some particles behave as if the distinction between past and future is meaningless. They can be entangled. Two particles, far apart, sharing a state instantaneously. Change one and the other reacts. Even across light years. No delay, no waiting, no time. It's called non-locality. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. It's real, and it suggests something disturbing, that cause and effect might not be tied to time the way we think. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that time, at this scale, is not fundamental. It emerges only when enough particles gather, when enough events happen in sequence. In other words, you might need time to think. But particles don't. You drift past a quantum clock, not ticking, not vibrating, but waiting. It measures time by watching an atom decay, not with precision, but with probability. The atom might decay now, or later. There's no fixed schedule. Is time as a maybe, not a must. This changes things, because if time can vanish at the smallest scales, is it real? Or is it a pattern we impose? A structure built from countless uncertainties, smoothed into something reliable only by the scale of our existence. When you're down here, this small, this quiet, time doesn't feel like a river. It feels like static. And yet, from this static, from this uncertainty, comes everything. You. Breath. Birth. Memory. All of it. Built on a layer where time might not exist at all. You float now past a thought experiment, a famous one. A box, sealed. Inside, a cat, poison, a quantum trigger. The cat is both alive and dead until you look. That's not a metaphor. It's how quantum logic works, and it leaves you with an eerie sensation. Until you observe it, reality doesn't choose. The moment is undefined. No past, no future, only possibility. So, if time can be paused by uncertainty, what happens when no one is watching? When no one remembers? Is there still a before? Is there still an after? Or only a maybe? You rise now, gently, leaving the quantum haze behind, returning slowly to a scale where seconds begin to count again. But something has changed in you. A knowing, a whisper, that beneath every moment you live is a silence deeper than time. The corridor opens into a vast glass-like plane that seems to stretch in all directions. There are no walls, no ceiling, only a soft, silvery mist that hovers at ankle height, hiding the floor. The sky above is motionless, pale, frozen. Here, we ask a question whispered by philosophers and physicists alike. Is the future already here? You stand in the middle of what feels like everything, a space outside time or perhaps inside all of it at once. Around you, glowing points begin to emerge in the mist. They hover quietly, like fireflies, some warm, some cold. Each one a moment, a fixed point, a possibility. You walk forward and one brushes against you. A birthday, a goodbye, a breath before a first kiss, a word you almost said. These are not memories, they are coordinates, locations in time, held within the structure of the universe like pages in a book. In classical physics, the present is real, the past is gone, the future hasn't happened. But in the theory of block time, sometimes called the block universe, all moments in time exist simultaneously. Past, present, future, all equally real, already written. Time is not a river flowing forward, it is a landscape, and we, like travellers, move through it, one step at a time, believing that the path is being created as we walk. But in this view, already safe, already complete, that nothing can be truly lost. But it also stirs unease. If the future is fixed, what becomes of choice, of change, of free will? You pause by another point. It glows gold. You see yourself, not clearly, but enough, sitting on a hill. The wind moves through tall grass. You are older, or maybe younger. You are at peace. This moment may be 10 years away, or it may have already happened and you've forgotten, but it's there, waiting. You cannot reach it, not yet, but it exists, like a book on a shelf you haven't opened, not unread, just unread by you. Now look around. These moments don't form a line, they form a shape, not linear, but vast. A net, a mesh, a constellation. Each node connects not only to the next, but to many others. Perhaps time doesn't move in one direction. Perhaps it's a weave, choices, consequences, memory, perception, stretching in every direction at once. And what you call now is merely the node your consciousness occupies. Like a flashlight, moving through a dark room full of paintings, each illuminated only for a moment. But they were always there. This doesn't mean your life is meaningless. It means it is whole, that you are not writing time, you are walking it. And with each step, you encounter a moment that has waited for you all along. You sit now on the plain. The mist calms, the glowing points dim, settling into the quiet beneath the surface. You close your eyes. The past is not gone. The future is not a secret. They are places, locations, coordinates in a landscape made of memory and matter. And just maybe, you have already been there. You continue walking, and the corridor transforms into something softer now, earthy, fragrant, alive. The air is filled with the quiet rustle of leaves and the subtle clicking of unseen insects. Above you, a canopy of green breathes gently in rhythm with the wind. Below, soft soil cushions each step. This is not a lab, not a machine, not a cave or a clock. This is a garden. And here, time speaks through light and leaf. You kneel beside a small plant, its broad leaves curled inward. You watch, patiently, and as the light shifts, it begins to open. Slowly, purposefully, as if it knows, because it does. Plants keep time. Without eyes, without ears, without clocks. They know when to bloom, when to fold, when to feed. They count light. It begins with photoreceptors, proteins in their cells that absorb sunlight and moonlight. These receptors act as messengers, helping the plant know the difference between day and night, dawn and dusk, season and cycle. And deep with millions of years, a morning glory knows it's morning, a night-blooming jasmine waits for darkness, and a tree, ancient, tall, quiet, doesn't just count light, it remembers seasons. In its rings, time becomes wood, each line a year, a story, a drought, a spring, a fire, a recovery. Time becomes structure. Now you move gently through the garden. You notice seedlings aligning themselves towards the sun, vines curling in anticipation, leaves trembling with light. No hurry, no confusion, only presence. Here, time is not external, not imposed. It is responded to, felt, woven into being, and the implications stretch beyond this green space. We now know that some plants can remember past events, like droughts, and respond more quickly next time. Not memory like yours, but still a kind of biological timekeeping, a non-neural echo of before. And it doesn't stop with plants. Fungi, hidden beneath the soil, send messages across root networks, responding to time-of-day cues. Animals, too, are locked into nature's calendar. Birds migrate not by instinct alone, but by circadian rhythms tuned to daylight changes. Bears, sensing shortening days, prepare for sleep. Even coral, silent, ancient coral, release their gametes during synchronized spawning events triggered by moonlight. The earth is alive with clocks. Not mechanical, not artificial, but instinctual, internal, precise. And as you stand now among the plants listening to their quiet order, you feel something begin to align in you as well. A rhythm that has been there all along, muted by alarms and deadlines, but never gone. A sense of when, not by number, but by need, but light, by presence. Maybe that's what we lost in the cities, and maybe that's what we remember here. That time is not just what we measure, but how we grow, how we bloom, how we rest. You lie back on the warm grass, eyes turned upward, and let time pass the way plants do, not by watching, but by feeling the sun shift softly above. The corridor changes once more. This time it feels layered, as if you're walking through a space composed of invisible rhythms stacked upon one another. Each footstep triggers a faint chime, each breath seems to pass through a different texture of silence. You've entered a room of rhythms, not just clocks, not just pulses, but clocks within clocks. Imagine for a moment a single second. Within that second your heart beats. Within that beat your cells transmit signals. Within those cells proteins fold and unfold like tiny machines, following their own precise timing. Zoom further in and you'll find atoms vibrating, electrons tunneling, quantum events ticking by in patterns we barely understand. Now zoom out. Your heart follows a circadian rhythm. That rhythm is influenced by the rise and fall of the sun. The sun, in turn, is moving through the galaxy. The galaxy drifts through cosmic filaments in cycles measured in millions of years. Everywhere you look, time is layered. You are never following just one clock. You are an orchestra of clocks, some fast, some slow, all playing at once. Consider this. Your body temperature changes slightly across the day. Your blood pressure follows a 24-hour wave. Your hormones, cortisol, melatonin, rise and fall like tides. But then there are ultradian rhythms, shorter cycles, like the 90-minute waves of sleep or the repeating patterns of hunger and alertness during the day. And infradian rhythms, longer ones, like menstrual cycles or seasonal mood shifts. You don't just have one internal time, you have dozens. And they're all trying to stay in harmony. But harmony doesn't mean sameness. It means alignment. Think of a forest. Every tree has its own growth cycle, but the forest breathes together, shedding leaves in autumn, blooming in spring, quiet in winter. You are the forest. Even your thoughts have time signatures. When you're focused, your brain emits beta waves, fast, efficient, alert. When you're dreaming, it shifts to theta, slow, surreal. When you're deeply relaxed, alpha waves spread like mist. Each mental state is a rhythm, a tempo, a clock. Now consider the external rhythms. Society runs on schedules. Schools, workplaces, appointments, all built on industrial time. But your body might not be in sync with that rhythm. You may wake when your body wants sleep, eat when your body wants to fast, think when your brain wants to wander. And that friction between natural time and imposed time is often called stress. But what if you could hear all your clocks again, feel them, align with them? What would change? Maybe you'd wake up not by alarm, but by light. Maybe you'd eat not by schedule, but by hunger. Maybe your creativity would rise not by effort, but by rhythm. You stand now in the corridor of overlapping clocks, some mechanical, some biological, some cosmic. They don't tick in unison, but they don't fight either. They layer, interlace, sing. And in that chorus, you realize time is not one thing. It is many things moving together. You are not late. You are not early. You are simply arriving into the rhythm you've always carried. The corridor is almost gone now, or rather it has dissolved into something else, something quieter, thinner, almost like the space between thoughts. You move forward, but it no longer feels like walking. It feels like remembering. This is the last chamber, the stillest question of all. Does time pass when no one is watching? You find yourself in a room made of nothing but soft reflections. Not mirrors, not glass, but echoes of light. There are no clocks here, no people, no movement, and yet you sense that something can be measured, predicted, modelled, that it flows according to mathematical laws, even if no one is present. But perception tells another story. If a moment passes and no one records it, remembers it, experiences it, did it truly happen? A tree falls in the forest, but if no ear hears it, was there a sound? If no eye sees the sun rise, did it rise at all? It's a question not of clocks, but of consciousness. You sit now in the centre of this final space, and slowly the room responds, not with sound, but with motion. Tiny glimmers begin to move across the surface around you, like dust disturbed by breath. You didn't hear them before, but now that you're here, they begin to stir, as if the presence of a witness brings time into being. There are theories, deep ones, that suggest time emerges from entanglement, from interaction, from information exchanged between systems. In other words, from observation. Some physicists argue that the flow of time is an illusion, a side effect of the way we process reality. That what we call now is simply a frame among many. Others argue that time doesn't really pass, we do. And maybe they're both right. Because here's what you know, even if you can't explain it. Time only matters to you because you are here to notice it. It matters because of what you do with it, what you remember, what you hope for, what you choose.
You are not a passive passenger, you are the observer, and in observing, you bring time to life. This room, this final room, is proof of that. It existed before you entered, but it awoke when you did. Now breathe, inhale, exhale one last time. You have walked the spiral from the cosmic to the cellular, from the ancient sky to the dreaming mind, and now you are still. You are the witness. You are the clock. You are the story that remembers. The corridor has faded now. There are no more walls, no more doors, no more questions, only breath, only quiet, only the long, gentle exhale of thought dissolving into rest. You are floating, not through space, but through softness, a place where every second has slowed into stillness. There is no ticking here, no rushing, no remembering, just a drifting warmth, like a blanket of dusk wrapping around your mind. Let go of the numbers, let go of the shapes, let go of the before and the after. You've seen time as shadow, as music, as movement, as stillness. You've watched it flow, stretch, tangle, disappear. But now you don't need to follow it anymore. It will go on, gently, without you. The body softens. The breath slows. Each thought that arrives does so quietly, like a visitor on tiptoe. You don't need to answer. You don't need to understand. Just listen, if you wish, or let them pass, like clouds over a sleeping ocean. There's nothing else to do now. Nowhere to be. No moment to catch. Only this, the peace of having wondered, are here. And that is enough.